They come from Clark Dewey Wells. Spirit of life and hope, we turn our minds and hearts again toward thee. Awaken us again to the mysteries that humble us, the realities that orient us, the truths that judge and guide us, the beauty that informs and ravishes us, the love that nurtures us, the fellowship that sustains us, the creativity that heightens and deepens and reorders our living, that we may give ourselves in honesty and openness to the larger life before us. And next we will have the responsive reading, which is in the back of the gray hymnal, and it is called, hopefully we got the right number, it's number 531, The Oversoul. Give everybody a minute to find it. Let us learn the revelation of all nature and thought, that the highest dwells within us, that sources and minds of nature are in our own mind. I am constrained every moment to acknowledge a higher origin for events than the will I call mine.
Deep power in which we exist and whose beatitude is accessible to us.
Every moment when the individual feels invaded by it is memorable.
It comes to the lowly and simple. It comes to whoever will put up what is foreign and proud. It comes as insight. It comes as serenity and gratitude.
The soul's health consists in the fullness of its reception.
Forever and ever, the influx of this better and more universal self is new and unsearchable.
Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one.
When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it is spread with our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love.
Very good. Now, do we have any joys and concerns that we would like to share? This would be anything that might have happened over the past week or so that you would like to talk to us about. Please come up and light a candle and pick up the microphone and so that we can all hear you.
Hi, I received a text this morning from Kathy McCunn. Wally is in Millard Fillmore Suburban. He has COVID. She is staying home. She's tested negative, but she says she has a sore throat and a little fever. So she didn't want to come in. She's going to continue testing herself. And my dad, I haven't been here a lot because my dad ended up falling and having a lot of serious issues. He's now in a nursing home rehab facility, but I don't think he's ever going to go back home again. He's 97 and he's kind of given up. So I'm wearing my mask today. I would encourage everybody else to start wearing their mask because we know Wally doesn't go to many places. So my guess is he may have picked it up here. He's not a big going out kind of guy, especially during COVID. And anybody who hasn't gotten their bivalent vaccine, I would strongly encourage you to go get that done. I'd like to light a candle.
Thank you. Does anyone have something they'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd just like to jump in for a second and express a concern, ongoing concern that we all have about the situation in Ukraine. And, you know, this obviously just, it's been months now, but so I don't think we've talked about it very much here. And it's so serious and so terrible. And it's the dominant disaster in the world today. And I thought perhaps at the very least, what we could do is just light a candle today, thinking about the folks in Ukraine and the terrible, terrible suffering that they've gone through as a result of the attack that they've been subjected to. So light a candle for the folks in Ukraine and wish them good thoughts.
Thanks. I think we are all wishing them good thoughts and wishing that somehow there would be a resolution to this situation.
You got to slide the thing up on there. It's on the side. There you go.
I have a joy. I've needed a hearing aid for a long time, and now I have them. And I think what I missed most was one of the speakers would say something funny, and the audience will laugh, and I didn't know what they're laughing about.
Welcome back to the world. Do you have any further joys or concerns? Okay. Would someone like to light a candle for all of the unspoken joys and concerns in our congregation and in our fellow UU congregations? And then we will take the offertory. We have some meditation words this morning from Tandy Rogers. Spirit of life and love, known by many names and worshiped in a rainbow of ways. Infinite mystery, spark of aha and awe and awe. Conspiring energy of independent co-rising, be with us now. Surround us, push us forward, pull us together. We give thanks this day for the opportunity to be together, to laugh, to learn, to play, and to build a vision. May this time bind us and set us free. May we know deep in our bones that we are not alone. We call in our elders, the pioneers and pilgrims whose shoulders we stand on. We call them in not to rest and bask in their glow of bygone days, but to be held accountable to the struggles and challenges and sacrifices that they offered with love. May we love them enough, love us enough, love those yet to come enough to keep raising the bar of expectations and dreams and possibilities. Give us the courage and conviction to put aside our egos and attachments so universal grace may stream in. We call in our silent, wise voice within. May we leave space to deeply hear what is spoken and unspoken. Spirit of life and love, be with us today. Give us the vision to dream beyond ourselves. Give us the humility to see our shortcomings as a place to begin and grow. Send us the compassion to create a safe place for us to explore possibilities. Give us the confidence to ask for what we need and want. Give us the courage to take risks beyond here and now and us. Salome, shalom, amen. And let's take a moment of silence to reflect on what we've heard in our joys and concerns and on this meditation. Lao Tzu once said, all streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it its power. Have you ever thought of humility as power? Humility is not something that we generally value a lot in our society. We live in a world that values ego, pride, comparison. Where do I stand next to my neighbor, my friend, or my family member? Who has the more influential job? Who has more money, the better house, car, education? Who is able to take vacations to the most prestigious resorts? We forget that all of these accomplishments are but tenuous, ephemeral pieces in the grand scheme of life. To see how fragile these constructs are, look at what happened in Florida a couple of weeks ago. Sanibel Island, one of the most expensive, status-laden locations in our country, was virtually leveled to the ground. The high-priced houses and resorts are still not even habitable. And there has just recently become access to the island. It was cut off completely when the causeway was breached by the stormwaters and the winds reached nearly all of the structures that had been built by man, reducing them to rubble. We all felt terrible for the people whose lives were literally blown away by Hurricane Ian. This was an act of God or of Mother Nature, whichever you prefer, and it just happened. Perhaps humankind is somewhat to blame for the climate changes we're experiencing that provoke this kind of storm. But what happens, happens. It's all serendipity at its worst. All of those streams flowing into the ocean, well, they produce a power greater than we human beings can really imagine. What's left for us is, how do we deal with these tragic events? With humility or with pride? If we are a proud, boastful, headstrong people, can our spirits bend enough to adjust to the changes that are brought on by these tragedies? Mark Nepo, author of the Book of Awakening, warns, probably not. In Nepo's opinion, time and time again, the head must be brought beneath the heart or the ego swells. If you do not bend, life will bend you. Unitarian Universalists are not much for praying or bowing. There are some Catholics, Buddhists, Muslims who practice physically bringing their heads beneath their hearts almost every day. Some bring their head so low the forehead touches the earth. There is a purpose behind this physical practice. If you try it, you will find it helps us internalize the value of being humble. Humility, Nepo says, accepting that your head belongs beneath your heart, with your thinking subordinate to your feeling, with your will subordinate to your higher order. I can and do say that I do enjoy a feeling of satisfaction at an end of a good yoga class, one that's been for me like a moving meditation, where at the end I sit on my knees and bring my head to the floor as I say namaste. At those times, my head is lower than my heart, and my heart is full of peace and gratitude for life. But in the rest of my life, subordinating my thoughts to my feelings is a very difficult challenge. It's a challenge that I find worth working on, though, because I know in both my heart and my head that it is the road to receiving the grace and peace that I want in life. Why? Why is humility so important? Americans who value individuality and success often look at humility as an extension of the word humiliation. It is a foreign concept to us. We don't like the feeling of humiliation. It is uncomfortable. Plus, it's closely related to another emotion that we all prefer to avoid, shame, which is possibly the most uncomfortable feeling of all. Yet there is a huge difference between humility and humiliation. We have all been humiliated multiple times in life. I can remember many, sorry, lost a page here. Just have to turn it over. Many humiliations I have been through, most of which I would never tell anybody about. But I will share one with you. Once, when I was dating, and when I was single after I left my first husband and met my second husband, I was out on a date. We were sitting at a bar, and I ordered a Manhattan, which is still one of my favorite indulgences when it comes to cocktails. This one came with a lovely plastic swizzle stick that had a little ball at the end. I sipped at my drink, listening attentively to my date as he described his day. And then after one particular sip, I realized that the little ball at the end of the swizzle stick had become lodged in my nostril, and the stick was now protruding out of my nose. That was humiliating. Not the worst or the most serious humiliation, but a pretty good example. Recently, I became aware of the true feeling of humility. It was raining out, and I was running into my daughter's garage to get something when my left foot, which was wet, slipped on the smooth cement garage floor, and I did the splits far more than my body allows for. I tore my hamstring quite badly. The actual accident was humiliating, but apparently it's a thing. My chiropractor informed me that most garage floors are smooth, and it's often that people's feet are wet. It's a bad combination. I still felt pretty stupid when I did it, but it was the after effects that were truly humbling. I have long legs, and therefore I walk fast and I have a long stride, but not for 3 weeks following the slip up. I had to shorten my stride and slow down considerably to avoid the pain in the back of my leg. I wondered if that was what being old was going to mean. As a slow person with a limp, I suddenly had more empathy for anyone who had trouble walking. I was no longer in control of my body. Rather, I was at the mercy of it. I was humbled, and it was a good lesson for me. What's the saying? Pride goeth before a fall. I had always been proud of my ability to walk fast and move my body around freely. Now I'm just thankful that I'm slowly getting my abilities back. There are actually many reasons to cultivate humility. We all know people who are not humble. Their main interest is in selling themselves, not getting to know us, who we are, what we think, or what we know. Such people tend not to be open-minded. They can't learn from others because they're never really listening to others. They are either talking themselves or thinking about what they're going to say next. They think that they already know everything. They make comparisons and choose environments where they believe they will come out on top. They are strongly attached to the person who they think they are. Humble people are quiet, respectful, and good listeners. They're just plain easier to be around than prideful people. Buddhism defines humility as grounded from the earth or low, because it originates from the word humus, which means earth. Humble people are grounded. They have a healthy sense of proportion. They still have egos, of course, but as a part of their daily lives, they practice putting their heads beneath their hearts. It's interesting to look at what a few different Buddhists think about humility. I'm probably going to mess up some of these names, but just bear with me. Thanissaro Bhikkhu says, an attitude of humility is a willingness to learn from the little things, no matter where they show themselves. Plus, it is being attentive, watchful, and not assuming that you already know. Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche defines it as an absence of arrogance. You relate to your world as an eye-level situation without one-upmanship. And the late Thich Nhat Hanh says, true love is a process of humility, of letting go of our individual ideas and notions to embrace and become one with another person or our entire community. There's lots of wisdom in Buddhism, but there's also a lot of wisdom in Unitarian Universalism. Take a look at the operative words in our 8 principles: inherent worth, justice, equity, compassion, acceptance, responsibility, conscience, peace, liberty, interdependence. These are words of the humble, not the prideful. Unitarian Universalists, myself included, tend to be rather pragmatic. I looked that word up just to make sure that I was using it correctly. The definition is dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. Yep, most of the time, that's me. Most of the time, that is us. However, we do have other facets to our personalities. If we did not, we wouldn't be sitting here today. Each and every one of us, in addition to being pragmatic, is a spiritual being. We all include some sort of spiritual practices, yoga, meditation, worship at this church, in our lives. We believe in our principles and we try to live by them. Each of us has a spiritual cup that he, she, they has a desire to work on, to expand as a means of continuing our journeys towards spiritual fulfillment. Corrado Pensa wrote an essay called A Journey from Humiliation to Humility. In it, he says, the ego's policy is simple and clear. At all costs to pursue what is pleasant, and at all costs to avoid what is unpleasant, ceaselessly. Life is not all pleasant. There is illness, there is injury, property gets damaged by storms, there is violence, there is anger, there is death. If our ego is leading our hearts, do we simply deny the existence of the pain in our lives? Pensa continues, as long as we are driven by this blind, note the use of the word blind, faith in our egos, we cannot develop wise faith in the inner work and its goal. They are incompatible. Humility is not something that we can turn off and on like a switch. It has to be practiced. Pensa tells us, if I struggle against humiliation, it destroys me and increases my inner disharmony. But if I let it alone without opposing it, it builds up my inner harmony. From the moment I succeed in no longer moving in my humiliated state, I discover with surprise that here is the unique harbor of safety, the only place in the world in which I can find perfect security. Most of us are under the illusion that security comes from being in control. But Pensa is saying when we let go of control, that is when we feel really secure. When I realized that I was going to be walking slow, short strides for a few weeks, and I accepted that fact, I also learned a slower lifestyle isn't such a terrible thing. I had more time to think, more time to bend in the wind, more time to appreciate my own health and the strength of those around me who haven't had the same good luck with their health. I thought about the expression, let me be like water. Water flows. It flows around solid objects. It flows with the currents of other bodies of water. It flows with the incline of the earth that it inhabits. Water can be a solid, it can be ice. But look what happens to ice when it hits an object or the currents or the temperature shift. It breaks or melts. In this life, we have very little control. In reality, we can only control our inner selves. Growing humility within benefits us in many ways. It makes us more appealing personalities. It helps us relate to others, and it allows us to fill our spiritual cups. Pridefulness, on the other hand, is like putting a pretty plate over the top of those cups. It might look nice, but nothing gets in. Ultimately, if we are not humble, we will not have the heart to be spiritual beings. If we are not humble, we are giving up the opportunity to have real power, the power that evolves when our stream joins all of the other streams to become the ocean. As Nepo says so well, humility is accepting that your head belongs beneath your heart, with your thinking subordinate to your feeling, your will subordinate to the higher order. This acceptance is the key to receiving grace. I invite you to put your head beneath your heart as often as you can. Feel your power and use it for good. Namaste. So be it, and blessed be. And we will go to our second hymn, which hopefully we both all have the right number for. It is 170. Is that what you have, Patty?
Yep.
We are a gentle, angry people.
Gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. And we are singing, singing for our lives. And we are singing.
Okay. Do we have any announcements this morning? Before we close out our service? No announcements? I don't want to cut anybody off here, okay? All right, our closing words this morning come to us from Andrew Pakula. As you prepare to leave this sacred space, pack away a piece of this church in your heart. Wrap it carefully like a precious gem. Carry it with you through the joys and sorrows of your days. Let its gentle flow strengthen you, warm you, remind you of all that is good and true, until you gather here again in this place of love. And will you join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice, which are written in the cover of your order of service? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Art thou troubled? Music welcome thee. Art thou weary? Rest shall be thine. Rest shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness, heals thy sadness at her shrine. Music, music ever divine.
Absolutely divine. Thanks, Patty.
See you again. Namaste.
Enjoy your coffee hour.